Finally, last but not least, we have Keisuke Suzuki. Keisuke is a specially appointed lecturer at the Center for Human Nature, Artificial Intelligence and Neuroscience chain in Hokkaido University in Japan. He specializes in artificial life and human cognitive functions in virtual reality environments. One of Keisuke's key research focuses is about conscious presence. There is the subjective feeling of being here and now. His approach builds on the state-of-the-art virtual reality to experimentally manipulate the bodily and mental states of mind, which is complemented by theoretical modeling. Today, Keisuke will be talking about his hallucination machine and a possible computational mechanism underlying the distinctive visual alterations specifically under psychedelic substances. Sounds fascinating. Keisuke, please take it away. And you are muted. Just you're muted.
Hello, can you hear? Okay. Thank you, Tesh, for the introduction. And I can see some of the face I kind of saw this week, and I'm really happy to present my talk in front of the people in a fresh time. So let me start. So I just start with the take-home message because yeah, my talk is maybe a bit complicated. So what I want to tell you today is basically we are able to create the first-person experience using computational model, because the deep neural network is now scaled up really well, and the output of computational model is now like the high quality enough for we can actually experience it the first person. And with that, I'm proposing, and not just me, but we're proposing some new direction to study consciousness with a computational model. So it used to be, I mean, we're still doing, but the computational models are employed for simulator, more like objective performance of perception and cognition, but we can maybe propose a new way to do using the computational model to directly simulate conscious phenomenology rather than use performance of the perception. So I mean, not just me again, but yeah, altered state of consciousness is really fascinating. You know, we have a lot of different type, you know, dream, trance state, hypnotic state, psychedelic experience, and a lot of different way to induce this type of atypical experience. I think still like a standard way of studying the consciousness is investigating the normal awakening perception for the healthy adult. And these kind of altered state have been ignored in the mainstream science. But recently there is as you may know, the big resurgence of psychedelic study, especially people found they actually have an effect for that, like a clinical application to use the psychedelic to treat a depression, for example. So I think, you know, the altered state of consciousness in definition is not just one single modality like a perception, but it affects the perceptual, cognitive, emotional, or even like some existential aspect of consciousness. Maybe that's why it's kind of have some effect to the, you know, treating depression. You know, it's just it's not just a one single type aspect of like a visual consciousness, but it's really, how to say, whole aspect of consciousness can be changed. So yeah, it's fascinating. And they started a lot of actual neuroscientific research on the psychedelic, but we still have a big gap between these two approaches. You know, one is more like a experiential approach. Some people drawing this kind of visionary art to describe their experience in the psychedelic under the experience under the psychedelic substances. But also we have this objective quantitative way of seeing the same effect, like scanning a brain and seeing the change of network of the brain and the LSD, for example, under the, without the LSD. So how to bridge this gap between two? I mean, this is sometimes it's called the hard problem or like explanatory gap. So we want to, you know, bridge these two. And of course, this subjective side, subjective investigation of the conscious state is have a long story like phenomenology. So these are, I think I don't need to go deeper in this part, but the Froissart or Merleau-Ponty studying the more like subject aspect of consciousness by making the description without any assumption. So they're kind of focused on the lived experience in the sense that they try to describe a stream or flow of their existence without any assumption. Okay, so but these studies really descriptive in the original time, but recently it has been trying to extend the phenomenology into, or like to bring together the phenomenology with the empirical science. For example, I think this is most popular, famous one is neurophenomenology, like Barrera or Lutz trying to do phenomenology with, for example, EEG recording was more like a the combined phenomenology with more like a psychological or neurocognitive way. Or there's other type of approach, like a second person approach. Claire Petty-Minton doing the phenomenological interview, just trying the, rather than the participant, but the interviewer to do I mean, having a skill to interview like the people with like a naive, unbiased the experience. And also there's a formal approach to fund the phenomenology onto more like a formal system or even the mathematics. So I think integrated information theory, which proposed by Giulio Tononi, is also in this category. You know, they start with a kind of phenomenology and develop the certain theory, information theoretic theory on it. And also I'm originally from physics, so sometimes they bring some idea from physics, and sometimes phenomenology word phenomenology is used in the physics as well. So for example, phenomenological model is in comparison with theoretical model in physics is something like that. So we of course know each, for example, the flow of the liquid is governed by Newtonian laws of motion. So if you simulate a water liquid, I mean, in a more accurate way, we should actually simulate each molecule dynamics. But we can also know this kind of Navier-Stokes equation can capture the like similar macro scale behavior of the liquid. And these models sometimes in physics is called phenomenological model compared to theoretical model. So this doesn't capture the actual molecular level accurate behavior of each particle, but still it can describe very well for the macro scale state. So I think when we study like phenomenology, we don't need to go into the neurochemical scale of the model, but we can maybe stay in this kind of abstract, maybe mesoscopic scale description. So this is just a kind of, not aligned with the phenomenology, but I just put this as a kind of conceptual relation between the phenomenology and phenomenological model in physics. Okay, so I started with altered state of consciousness, but this from here I'm focused on more like visual aspect of that. And in our even daily life experience, we have so many different type of altered state of our experience. Some of them just optical illusion. You know, you can see this sphere is moving, rotating, but it actually doesn't. Also, I think this is categorized misperception. Sometimes it's called pareidolia. We see the face or any kind of meaningful pattern when there's a 3 dot. Or there is hallucination. This is simple hallucination. Sometimes it's just induced by a pressure on your eyeball, but this one is drawn by a person taking LSD, or even without any I would say neurological change. Some people see this kind of different type of hallucination with eye disease. It's called Charles-Bonnet syndrome. And more realistic hallucination is often reported by Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia patient. And these are fascinating. There's so many different type of visual experience, and especially this hallucination is really peculiar because some people report their hallucination is almost exactly same quality with a real perception. So how does it actually comes true? I'm going to do more like a computational model or like deep learning stuff. So now, I mean, it started 2014, but the generative model in machine learning is now developing really rapidly. And I think now it's like called DALL-E 2 by OpenAI, creating a really realistic image using the language model. But even this one, generative adversarial network, creating the realistic natural image, and it's getting more real and more bigger, larger resolution by year by year. In this 2019 one, I cannot see any difference from, of course, if I see really detail, I can maybe still spot some difference from the real image, but almost exact same as a natural image. And from that, I just put some quote from the stuff from 2018. I think it's a kind of private, how to say, he said he didn't publish this part in his paper, but he posted in a Facebook. But I like this just a dialogue with the idealistic two person. So it's called the hard math problem of generative model. And I just going quickly. So there, like a Mysterian said, why is there something that it looks like to be output layer of generative model for image? This is just this one. And non-Mysterian said, oh, because it was trained on the data with certain statistical regularity that can be reproduced when the model is embodied. But no, I mean, how can those images be so rich in terms of color, texture, and shape? You can see now it's just a kind of same argument with the query. And Mysterian said, because these features were part of the regularity of the world that the network's able to run. So this kind of big neural network itself is not having that kind of stuff, but because of the data of the nature, we can actually create this kind of rich representation, or it doesn't need to be representation, but just output of the model. But like Mysterian people kind of keep asking the same stuff. But at the end, it's just inside. It's just a linear algebra inside the neural network. So I know this is not the answer of all the problem or the hard problem of the consciousness, but I believe this kind of captures some part of the problem people call the problem of query. Some image. Why this image can be so rich and natural? Maybe that's as it is. The nature is like that, and we capture this kind of regularity by a neural network. Anyway, so I think so from that, I want to kind of insist, studying the deep neural network, capturing the regularity of the natural world could be potentially a kind of model for our perception. So it's not the actual, brain-centric view, because neural network itself isn't so important. It's just a bunch of data from the natural world. Okay. So in my study called Hallucination Machine, I think some of you in the workshop seen the video, but we use this type of class of neural network called deep convolutional neural network. The convolutional network is a deeply layered, sometimes more than 10 or 20 layered feed-forward neural network, and it's really succeed for image classification tasks. So the idea is, if you put the image into the bottom layer of the network, it just output what category it is. So normally it's trained with 1,000 different categories. And the important thing is these features in each layer is automatically learned from the data. So it used to be the human engineer designed these features for each array of the network in like 20 years ago. But now from the data neural network automatically obtain which feature is important to categorize the data. And interestingly, this network itself is not designed for generating image, but some people try to invert the network to visualize the future space of the network. It just normally it's just for the analyzing the future of each node of the network doing. So one of that is called the deep dream algorithm or activation maximization originally. So this is kind of a simple idea. So the deep neural network, deep convolutional network is like this, image to category with many layers. And when we train the neural network, we just are using the backpropagation to change the network weight between each neuron. And once training is done, we can just put the image on the left side and that just going through one sweep and saying, oh, this is a dog. So this is perception or classification. But this deep dream or activation maximization method is using the similar like top-down information processing using the same backpropagation, but this time fixing the weight of the network, but changing the image itself. So it's basically asking network, what is the image which mostly activates a certain category of the top layer of the network. So this is the image, just I would say ramping up this change from the Van Gogh profile picture to the totally different image. So as you can see, there's a kind of fox or doggy patterns appears. And it's just because human face is slightly similar to the dog or cat or some animal face. So it's just emphasizing dogginess more and more. And people can see, this looks a bit like a psychedelic experiment. So what I did in with my colleague is we capture 360 video footage of our beautiful Sussex University campus. It's like a Tuesday market we often go to for lunch. And this is just a normal 360 video, but it's quite high resolution. I think it's a 4K panoramic video we capture. And we apply this deep dream to this panoramic video. So this is our hallucination machine. So as you can see, there's a dog everywhere basically. But you can find sometimes there's a polar bear here, under the things beam or big. I mean, you can see a lot of dogs. I can answer why there's so many dogs later if you want to know. But this is it basically. So we implement this in a virtual reality headset, so people can see this in an immersive setup. And just creating this is just kind of fun, I and my colleague just enjoy watching this video, but we needed to do science. So we did some comparison with using this altered state of consciousness questionnaire, which already has been used with the actual psychedelic research in Imperial College in London, Robin Carhart-Harris group. So we did ask people after watching this psychedelic video or just the original unmodified image or unmodified video to rate their experience using this scale. And I don't put the kind of each question, but you can imagine like how vivid your visual experience is. Do you see any space or something, or does it change your ego or change your arousal, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of surprising, we didn't expect, but this blue line is this artificial synthesized hallucination that is quite similar to the rating after the psilocybin administration. Psilocybin is an ingredient of the magic mushroom, by the way. Um, People say, yeah, it's of course maybe it's trivial because we actually show the visual distortion. So people rate high for the patterns and the space and the strangeness, whereas they don't really see the change in the time or control, of course. But actually, it's not really phenomenal or superficial, but we can see some similarity between this hallucination machine and actual psychedelic experiences. Okay. And this is kind of a supplement, but even 2015, people comparing the representational similarity between artificial neural network and the actual human brain visual cortex. So if they compare the dissimilar matrices of the brain and the deep neural network, they found when they see like a higher layer of visual cortex, especially for this ventral pathway, the higher visual cortex is more similar to the higher layer of deep neural networks, whereas lower layer of neural network, lower layer of artificial neural network is more similar to V1 or V2 lower biological visual system. So there are some, structural similarity. I don't know if it's a structural similarity. Of course, the deep neural network is inspired by the human visual cortex, but there is also have some functional or representational similarity between artificial neural network and the actual human brain. And from that, we can actually create different, I'll say, characteristic of visual hallucination by selecting which layer of the deep neural network to visualize. So if I specify the lower layer of neural network, it can create this kind of geometric filtering pattern of the image, a little bit higher layer, creating some kind of, I think there's a lot of eyeballs. It's a bit creepy, but yeah, all the circle everywhere. And again, it's, if I specify the highest layer, it's going to see it's going to show that kind of whole, how to say, full-fledged picture of the animals. And this is kind of aligned with some, this is, I think, a report from ayahuasca. Some people taking ayahuasca report is starting from this kind of geometric hallucination. It's kind of transit to the object, and it's going to be more like a actual animal on the face. So maybe, this model can beautifully explain different type of hallucination with just this layered neural network. Okay, and now I'm just going to the computational mechanism of the visual hallucination. And there's a lot of study on that, and even like more than 10 years ago, there's some computational model of visual hallucination for Charles Bonnet syndrome. Or more recently, some people found Lewy body dementia patient has a more rely on a prior knowledge when they do some kind of perceptual task. So of course, people can imagine the hallucination can be induced by a strong top-down prior relating the sensory input. But interestingly, psychedelic effects looks like a completely opposite effect. So this is a Carhart Harrison Frisson paper. It's a kind of extension of this what's called entropic brain. They kind of combine entropic brain idea with the predicoding stuff, and they claim psychedelic actually relaxing the top-down belief and more like freeing up the bottom-up information flow. So even though there is a hallucination, seeing something doesn't actually exist there, there might be involved two different or more, more than one different mechanism involved. So now I'm going to more like what is the difference between the psychedelic visual hallucination and the pathological visual hallucination. This is actually an ongoing study, but we just characterize there's mainly two different phenomenological difference. Psychedelic visual hallucination characterized with perceptually non-vertical. You can see it's not very realistic, always this kind of vivid color and the patterns. And also it's often depending on the sensory input. It's just kind of transformative. Whereas pathological visual hallucination is kind of opposite in these two characteristics. Perceptually more vertical, they sometimes cannot distinguish from real person. And also the content of hallucination just appears on a blank background. for example, on the floor. So we are now going to I'm just trying to model these two aspects in one single network. So the network using this hallucination machines, this perceptual network is just a feed-forward network. But you can see in the beginning, I showed the deep generator network like a GAN, generative adversarial network. So now I'm combining two networks together. So studying, I can just play the video. The one single model can generate two different type of output. One is more like psychedelic type of hallucination. Another is more realistic pathological visual hallucination. And yeah, I'm not showing the detail of the model. It's just a preparation now. I'm just going to more like discussion now. So why this psychedelic phenomenology is similar to, oh, this is last quick now. Why is this marked similarity between psychedelic phenomenology and deep dreamed image? I'm thinking about this and deeper, some paper, this is kind of a more like machine learning people studying this future space in deep neural network. They said the deep dream algorithm isolates effective causes of visual categorization, so which doesn't need to resemble the actual sensory input. It's just so the one I showed in the previous slide, the deep generator network try to mimic the sensory input, whereas this deep dream algorithm doesn't need to resemble the actual sensory input, but they just capture the most important features of the image to categorize something. So this is actually kind of similar concept of this adversarial example of the deep neural network. So even you put some really small noise, the neural network miscategorizes this pig image into airliner, so it doesn't matter what it actually looks like for human eye. If this seems to be airliner for the deep neural network, it is the airliner. It doesn't matter. So there is actually dissociation between human perception and the deep neural network. So, it's almost end. Sorry, it's getting long. But there is actually one kind of theory of psychedelic, like a long time ago. It's by Aldous Huxley. He's a famous author writing the book Duals of Perception. He described the psychedelic effect as a kind of bulb to kind of suppressing the rich information going to the consciousness. So the idea is the normal brain suppressing or inhibiting certain brain process. But psychedelic just open up this inhibitory function. That's why we see this kind of rich hidden feature when we take psychedelic. So, but they don't really specify. At least Huxley didn't specify what is the information hidden by the brain and what appears to be in the consciousness when we use a psychedelic. They didn't specify that. But I just propose maybe this hidden future filtered in the normal waking state of brain consciousness is actually this future of the perceptual categorization. So it doesn't need to look like a sensory input, but it's just important for perceptual category. And that kind of future just suddenly appears when you take psychedelic. So
Keisuke, if you can just summarize it.
Yeah, it's the end. So
you.
This is the end. So I just said this is the way to study consciousness by simulating first-person experience using combining the virtual reality and the deep neural network. And this is kind of toward computational neurophenomenology, because the deep neural network has some similarity to the brain, and this can be used to investigate conscious phenomenology. Thank you. That's it.